This is going to be exciting. Let me give it 3 more seconds. All right, let's close it. And let's share the results. I'm brand new, and I've dabbled a little bit. Chris, you don't have any experts out there. Pretty cool. Okay, now that you know where we're at. Okay. Thankfully, as you can see, I'm not alone here today. Let's see. Let me give this. And I'm going to pass this on to the smart people on this group. I'd like to introduce you to one of my favorite team members here, Matt Waterwall. Matt, would you like to say a few words?
I would, Heather. Thank you very much for that introduction. I'm pleased to be included with the smart people there. So thank you. Truth be told, Heather's the one who has been doing a lot of heavy lifting on this seminar, and want to thank her for her efforts. I feel like the college student I was that got paired up with the extra smart kid one project, and they carried on the heavy lifting. So thank you, Heather. A little bit about myself. I've been with Trade Tech for about 15 years as an account executive. Got clients in various different industries, and as Heather said, we've got a good team that we work with, and quite a few of you were invited by your account executives at Trade Tech. The premise of this was we came up with a concept shortly after COVID hit, and really put a crimp on live events for us. How do we stay in front of our clients, and how do we continue to provide value to them in times when no trade shows or no live marketing events are taking place? So we decided to lean on our clients, who we consider to be some of the smartest out there as well, and started a roundtable discussions that take place twice a month. And it's an open forum where folks can come in and just kind of vent about what's going on, what's working for them, what may not be working for them in their marketing efforts, as everybody has shifted their focus and trying to stay relevant and keep their brands at first and foremost with prospects and clients. With that brought us to featuring once a month subject matter experts, and we're about to introduce one that I consider a close friend and is very accomplished, Chris Slocum with Clarity Quest Marketing. Clarity Quest is an agency that's based out of the East Coast in Connecticut, and they have offices in Michigan as well. Chris is a 25-year veteran in the marketing, business development, and project management arena. Clarity Quest, his clients from startups all the way to Fortune 100 organizations. Chris and I have actually worked on a couple of projects together in the healthcare IT and imaging arenas, as well as some biotech projects also. Chris is an MBA from Western International University. As if that wasn't enough, she also has her Master's of Science in Electrical Engineering from Villanova. So she is a double threat. She is also active in the Women Presidents Organization, an organization that helps promote and continue mentoring leaders of different companies throughout the world. So joining Chris today will also be Melanie Hilliard. Melanie comes with 20 years experience in digital marketing and marketing efforts as well. So without further ado, let's get things started. And what you're looking for right now is all the content that's going to be so good for you in terms of LinkedIn advertising. Chris, take it away.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Heather. I want to really thank the Trade Tech Skyline team for inviting us here today. They have been amazing partners for probably 8 years now, and really saved our bacon quite a few times on exhibit floors. So thank you to the team and for inviting us to speak today. And want to thank my colleagues, Melanie Hilliard and Marla Sokolowski, who leads up our LinkedIn and digital marketing teams. Matt promoted me as the expert, but I couldn't present this without their help today. They certainly are the experts on our team. And Heather, I'm showing my screen as pause, so I just want to make sure that I am off pause mode here and that everyone is seeing things.
I can see it.
Okay, excellent. So it just should have switched to the power of LinkedIn. Is that correct?
Nope. It's your first screen.
It's showing as paused and won't let me out of that. So sorry for the technical.
Pause.
Yes.
There we go. We got it.
It just changed.
Got it? Okay. I just clicked it.
All good.
We are there. Excellent. So why LinkedIn and why should we be interested in LinkedIn? And I saw many of you are new to LinkedIn. It is a social network of over 500 million active professionals, and they're not just folks who are looking to switch jobs. People often think LinkedIn is an HR or career site. It's actually a really powerful network. And 80% of business-to-business leads are generated that come through social media come from LinkedIn. And I've given a source here for that. And if you just Google that metric, you'll find several other sources that have comparable statistics to that. If you're a B2C company, a business-to-consumer company, much of what I'm going to mention today is also applicable. And I'll try and point out where there are differences between B2B and B2C as it comes to LinkedIn. But if your buyers are business professionals or really anyone who's in the LinkedIn network, really doesn't matter what you're selling. You just have to approach it a little bit differently. And just full disclosure, our agency has no business or financial affiliation with Microsoft or LinkedIn. We're just an agency that's learned to use the channel effectively to grow our clients' revenue. And about 90% of what we do is B2B and 10% B2C, or business to patient in the healthcare arena. All right. I'm a data person. As Matt said, I come from an engineering background, so I tend to approach marketing from a data perspective. And so I want to share with you actual campaign data. And this is redacted. It's from one of our clients, and it happens to be a client that has a pretty high-end offering. So you may look at some of these costs per marketing qualified lead conversion and go, oh my goodness, it's $40 to $50 per lead that we're getting. But in this case, the offering is like $15,000 and up, and a lot of them are six-figure with recurring annual revenue. So don't let those numbers scare you. Your numbers could be completely different depending on what your offering is. But this is a comparison of Google search ads, Google display ads, which some of you may be more familiar with than LinkedIn, and then LinkedIn. And as you can see, one metric you might first notice is LinkedIn ads on the cost per click are more expensive. In this particular client, they're almost 2x a Google search ad and quite a bit more than a Google display ad click. But the cost per what we call MQL, or marketing qualified lead conversion, that is a download, a webinar sign up, a raise their hand and ask for a sales call or information, that's actually lower than the other channels. And we've been running this campaign for a couple months now, and this is some initial data, but we have data from other clients that's pretty consistent with this as well. The lead volume for Google search ads is high. If you've ever clicked on a Google search, you see those ads all over the place on the search engine result pages. It tends to get a lot of traffic. There's just a lot of eyeballs there. Whereas LinkedIn is more moderate, but it's much more targeted. And we find the lead quality is higher across the board, whether it's a medical device, whether it's a service, whether it's a professional service. The quality on LinkedIn is better because we are able to target, which I'll explain more in just a bit. And LinkedIn also has this nice kind of embedded feature in that, in this last row, I say it affects organic. And organic meaning, in the case of Google, it really doesn't affect where your free listings or organic listings are on a search page, whether you do paid ads. But in LinkedIn, you can get followers to your corporate page, and now you have an invitation to engage. So it does have that extra little nice element to it in terms of followers. And I've given a link that's also in the handout here if you want to see data from another actual campaign that's not Clarity Quest data, and it's been completely vetted here. There's a link here that actually has some similar information with a different cost per click that's lower. All right, so types of LinkedIn ads. Since a lot of our viewership here is new, there are several different types of ads, and the simplest are text ads here on the left. Those are ones, if you log into your profile, you'll see them on the right-hand side. They're pretty basic. They may have like a little icon, but they're pretty basic. We don't find really high engagement in those, so we don't tend to do those very much. Then you can go to dynamic display ads, which are the next setup. They're still kind of text-based. There's a little bit more graphic interface. There is personalization here by a title, by a name. You can do a bit more targeting on that aspect. And we've used them a little bit, but not too much. So I'm not going to talk too much about those today either. And then there's sponsored in-mail, which you can think about it as an email, but within the LinkedIn environment. I do not like personally, nor does our department like sponsored in-mail that much because it's interruption marketing. And unless you have an engagement with the folks, like, you know, if folks know Trade Tech and Matt wants to get in touch with them and let them know the webinar, I think in that case, it's totally fine to use something like that. But just for cold emails, it feels like a cold call to me, right? And so it's not as effective unless you have a relationship. The same with two new types of LinkedIn ads, which are called message ads. You can think of them as kind of a Twitter direct message type solution, and conversation ads. Again, I think fine if you have a relationship, engagement, they're a customer base, a user group. They can be really effective at getting those folks, but I wouldn't go to folks that don't know your brand at all. For folks that don't know your brand, what we really, really love is something called direct sponsored content. And LinkedIn makes it more complicated than it should be in nomenclature, in that they have an ad type called sponsored content, and they have one called direct sponsored content. They're kind of the same thing, but just with a twist. So sponsored content, you can promote a piece of content you already have on your LinkedIn company page. If you've done Pinterest, this is kind of like a similar model. You have a pin on your board and you want to promote it. It's easier to set up if you're a complete newbie, if you're going to be doing it in-house without the help of an agency that does this every day. But it's not very targeted. It just blasts out to anyone who follows you or come across your corporate profile. It is good for general awareness, if you've had a merger or acquisition, a press release, a product announcement, that kind of stuff is great, and you just want to get more eyeballs and make sure folks see it. That's a good avenue for sponsored content. Direct sponsored content shows up on your target's news feeds right in, like when you're pulling up your LinkedIn news feeds, without creating a post on your LinkedIn company page. They don't have to be a follower of your corporate profile. And so it just shows up by the targeting that I'll talk about in just a bit. It's great for A/B testing different messages, maybe putting a message or blog post that's time sensitive, so you don't want it to appear forever on your corporate profile. So we really like it for top and middle of the funnel lead generation. And as we discuss and look at the funnel, we found the best return on investment for those direct sponsored content ads are at this top of the funnel. And looking at a funnel a little bit differently than it's normally displayed, you really want to get viewers or drive interest in your product, drive brand awareness. You have something brand new, you need to get it to a set of IT buyers, for example, that are very niche, or you want to start having a Q&A with folks, or answering questions, or doing a frequently asked question kind of model with folks. Can work really, really effectively for that top to middle of the funnel. I have here a couple of examples of direct sponsored content ads, and for different kinds of our customers. These are ones actually that we've created. One on the left here is for a surgical device, and we're targeting a really tough audience to reach, which is spine surgeons. They're really busy people, and you wouldn't think, oh, are those people on LinkedIn? Yes, they are. Physicians are on LinkedIn, so if any of you are trying to target healthcare buyers, they are out there. And this has been a really, really effective ad because it's a video. And as you see, it's a very short video. It's 26 seconds. It only goes into highlights, but it gets that awareness and interest. And these folks saying, oh, you know, doctors especially are like, oh, I got to know everything that's going on. And if I don't know something, I feel I'm falling behind the curve. So I really need to stay on top of everything that's coming out in the industry. So it's a really effective engagement platform for them. And on the right side is another one of our clients that does high-end medical services, mostly in the industrial environment. They've been gangbusters, fortunately or unfortunately, because of COVID, and they do employee screenings. So very high demand right now in terms of folks looking for this. And we had webinars and invitations and run by their chief medical officers. So two things here, you can do any kind of content, but two that are really effective are short video clips and webinar invitations. I'll talk about some other kinds of content in just a bit as well.
Chris, real quick question, if you don't mind, coming in from the audience. The question is, does a person need to be a follower of the brand in order to see sponsored content ads?
No, they do not. They do not, but they can go in after the fact and then follow. In fact, that's what you want to try and get them to do, but they do not have to be a brand follower or follow the personal profile of, say, a company executive or employee.
Excellent, thank you.
And that's the real power as well in getting it in front of those folks who don't know about you, who you want to know about you. Mm-hmm. Thank you, Matt.
Absolutely.
All right, so we'll be talking now at a high level about successful LinkedIn and DSE as direct sponsor content setup. Some of this applies to whether you're going to do the text ads or other types of ads as well, but primarily we'll be talking on the sponsored content side today. And I'll be touching on what I can touch on in a 25-minute webinar. There are lots of little caveats and things to learn within LinkedIn. We've been doing it about 7 years, and really it's taken that time to really become experts in this because there's little tricks of the trade, which I'll share some of them today, and then some of it is just getting in there and learning it and trying A/B testing on things. So I'll go through 10 steps today. So you have this handout, and I'll be happy to take questions along the way. First, before you even dive into your LinkedIn profile and corporate company page and campaign manager, you want to secure a budget and commitment to a quarterly campaign at a minimum. And why I say that is, LinkedIn is not a cheap channel in most regards. You saw what some of those clicks were costing. Some of them are going to be less, but they're probably at least going to be a couple bucks a click. And you're going to need at least 15K for ad spend. So 15K if you're going to manage a quarterly campaign in-house. So you have to think about, what's my product price? What am I trying to sell? Is this a good channel for that? If you're a more expensive product, you wouldn't want to do this, for a $50 product, I would say, but if you're a couple thousand at least, makes a lot of sense. And you want to have it at least quarterly, because if you're managing it in-house, it's going to take you at least a month to learn all the bells and whistles and test things, test different banners, test different creative, test different landing page and headlines. It's rare that you're going to hit the ball in the park in the first month. So really get commitment from your leadership team to run this a quarter so that you can make the tweaks you need to really test it out as a channel. If you're going to use an agency, double that. There is a lot that we usually have to do in terms of ad optimization, bid optimization, creative, landing pages, copy, and getting everything tweaked correctly and having different variations of things. So just guidelines and ballparks. We have a lot of folks who call us and like, I have $2,000, I want to do LinkedIn. I'd say, go do some Google ads first, as a first, really. But if you're really looking at a product or service where you're selling above a few $1,000s, then LinkedIn makes a lot of sense if your buyers are on LinkedIn, which we're going to talk about next. So second is to create buyer profiles. And then determine, are they on LinkedIn? We've had some customers come to us and their buyers just aren't either there or active, but in 80 to 90% of the cases, they are. And so if you don't already have buyer profiles, create them. And they can be really simple. I've seen ones that the buyer profiles are 80-page or 80-slide PowerPoint decks. You don't need that. What you really need to run effective LinkedIn campaigns is understanding some basic things. And this is Gary, the IT manager, as an example. What are their likes? What do they worry about? What kind of titles do they have? And LinkedIn's a great way to find different titles for folks. What do they read? What keeps them up at night? Who influences them? What other websites are they on in terms of forums, or what search engine do they use? And are they really into LinkedIn and groups? I'm going to pause there. Matt, do we have any other questions coming in?
Yeah, actually, this one's pretty appropriate right now, Chris and Melanie. Phil Johnson's asking, LinkedIn has the ability to get very granular with regard to job function, title, and other audience traits. Says that's a blessing and a curse. Of course, how can we more accurately target our ads?
Yeah. So really interesting. That's a great question. So you do want to look at specific titles, but then there are ways where you can actually take your existing customer list. Let's say you have an Excel file of your existing customers and input it into LinkedIn, and it's going to spit out everyone who has a similar profile or similar title. There could be 80 different IT manager titles like Gary here, but LinkedIn's algorithms are smart enough to help you figure out what all those different titles and who are like profiles. Does it get it right 100% of the time? No, but it's really quite good. We've had ones where clinicians or physicians have very, very different titles. And LinkedIn's been very good at identifying a spine interventionalist is the same as a spine surgeon, as the same as a different type of surgeon that also does spinal or pain surgery. So it's that. In terms of finding the other information, that's on this buyer profile, you're like, where do I start other than LinkedIn? Wanted to give folks a couple other resources. One is a website called SparkToro. It's actually a tool, a SaaS tool. It is from the founder of Moz, Rand Fishkin, his new venture. If you're familiar with Moz and search engine optimization, it is super, super powerful. You can go in and type in a website and say, give me all the other places where folks who visit this site, what do they also visit on social? You can go and put in Gary's Facebook, Twitter profile, and it'll also spit out where he visits as well, or more likely to visit. Really powerful, check it out. It is a paid tool, but there are some free trials on it. And third, market research. And boy, sounds old school compared to some of these other more digital campaigns. But we do market research in the form of win-loss analysis for a few clients. And that is super powerful in that we talk to deals they won, deals they lost, and excuse me, as part of that, ask, what are you interested in? What do you read? So that can be really informative as well. losing my voice here. I'm just going to take a quick sip of water.
Thanks.
All right. And then we're going to ask you to think about the customer journey and how your prospects purchase. You really want to map your audience's needs to the buying process, and not necessarily in a traditional funnel like in the inside of this graphic, but on the outside. How does your audience want to receive information? And what are they looking for? Are they looking for FAQs? Are they looking for some enjoyment in these tough times? You know, even if it's a quick laugh. Are they looking just for answers? Are they looking for a comparison of you to the competition? Really get into the mindset of what would be the best content. And sometimes you don't know it out of the gate, and you really have to try different kinds of content. Sometimes humor works, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes a best practices guide works, and sometimes a video is better. So that's why you need that quarter of time to really try different kinds of content and see what's going to resonate best with your audience. And sometimes you'll find some really interesting things, like one title responds to a specific type of content, whereas another title that buys from you wants a totally different kind of content. All right, so now you've secured a budget, you've created your buyer profiles, and you've thought about the customer journey. It's time to develop content. And this is a step we find a lot of companies miss or want to skip over, or they want to try and develop content on the fly when they're running the campaigns. I would highly advise against that. I would get a basic content library, even if it's 3 blog posts, for example, before you dive into LinkedIn. And you really want to develop that content and map that content to your buying cycle and what folks like to engage with. We talked about those outside of the circle, best practices, enjoyment, information, answers, which are across the top here. Map that to the types of content you think you can develop in a timely fashion and offer. And some of this is going to be guesswork. I've given you sort of a best practices and data based on what our clients find. But you'll probably have to adjust this to your client base as well. Videos are great. They can go across the board, and they don't have to be Hollywood type videos. Website, have a awesome website, right? Like, don't do LinkedIn if you have a crappy website. Really, you have to build the foundation of a really, really great website, because guess where they're going to go after they engage with your content on LinkedIn? You're either going to bring them to a landing page, which is on your website, or they're going to go check out your website. So there's really no getting around having a high quality web presence. Best content types that we found. Case studies and white papers can work. On the white paper side, I'd keep them on the briefer side, no more than 3 or 4 pages. They're just not going to engage with it until they have a relationship with you. If you're in the stage of LinkedIn campaigns to folks who know you, who've been through a nurture cycle with you, then it's okay to have a longer white paper, especially if you're in a complex field or selling software, etc. Blog posts can be great. Make them meaty, make them educational. Podcasts, webinar invitations work really well. You can also send them to folks after the fact, as we'll be doing on this, and video, as we've talked about. And the video does not have to be, you know, Pixar, high quality, Hollywood ready. It can be authentic is really what's important. But put some thought into it, you know, as this marketing is doing it on the fly, and just asking folks to, you know, do something funny and be authentic with no preparation is not going to work, right? In most cases, unless there's something really bizarre going on, and no one's working at the office anyway anymore. So,
yeah. And
so
the great
really
part about
thought around that.
Yeah, I was going to say the great part about video too is that you can cut, slice it up in different. So if you make a 2-minute video, you can make 15-second sound bites and continue to reuse the content and re-release it. And so we've seen that successful video that Chris mentioned at the beginning is continuing to generate leads from essentially the same 2-minute original video.
Thank you, Melanie. That's great advice. Yeah, reuse content and slice and dice it as much as you can. It's hard to do this stuff. It takes a lot of time to do it well. So use it again, use it again, as much as humanly possible without getting too repetitive. Thank you, Melanie. You want to make sure not to skip this next one too, which is either create a LinkedIn company page or corporate page if you don't have one, or update your existing one. We find a lot of companies put one up, it's got some kind of generic image behind it, and then they forgot about it. Well, before you start doing ads, really take a look at it, because it's just as important as your website. People are going to visit there. They're going to look to follow you. So you want to make sure the generic image that LinkedIn gives you is replaced with a custom image. You want to make sure all your tabs here on the left-hand side, you have some messaging there. You have an about page. If you are hiring, let's get double bang for the buck and make sure you have your jobs listed there. And then make sure that your leadership team is linked to the corporate profile as well. People will often go check and see who they're connected with. That's the whole network effect. And so as many leaders and employees that you can get to make sure their LinkedIn profiles are set up correctly is important. All right, next you want to set up your campaign manager. I won't spend a ton of time on this today. LinkedIn just redid their campaign manager. It's a little better than it used to be, but Melanie will attest, it is not the simplest thing out there. And it is more complex than Google Ads dashboard. And so we've gotten clients just who threw up their hands and were like, we don't understand how to do this. There is some training available. There are some YouTube videos. You're gonna spend some time, if you're doing this in-house, just learning this dashboard and learning to navigate it. They're trying, and they definitely made some improvements, but it's still not the most intuitive. And it does have to be set up through a corporate profile and or a personal sponsored profile on LinkedIn. Next comes the really powerful part of LinkedIn, and that's setting up your prospect targeting. And this is what it does extremely, extremely well compared to some of the other channels out there. It's precise, it's powerful. You can target to your heart's delight pretty much. Company size, number of employees, experience level, education, interest. You can't do racial divides anymore, given sensitivity to that. You can't do like neighborhood type divides, but pretty much anything related to like a business title or company, experience, education type. Are they an engineer? Are they IT? That you can do that. And I've given a link in the handout to the full targeting capabilities. What's really cool are the groups and interests in there. So if they are following InfoWeek and Computer World, and so you can target specific groups with that. And like I said, there's an even more powerful where you can upload your existing customer list and say, I want to target all types of folks that are just like these people. Matt,
Melanie, we have a question that might be appropriate at this time. Ava Hackler is asking, how does targeting differ from B2B and B2C? Can you guys address that, please?
Yeah, it really doesn't matter from the platform side of itself, but you really would want to look at, again, those buyer profiles and what do your buyers have in common. So even if they're B2C, and let's say, I'm trying to sell to professional women, right? I have a target, like a desk product, something that's going to sit on my desk for professional women. I don't know what that would be versus that, but right. I want, what do those people have in common? What kind of titles do they have in common? Hopefully you already have a buyer list unless you're a startup. That's really the only way it would differ. It would be back more on that buyer profile than versus the actual LinkedIn platform itself. Thank you.
And
Yeah.
there is a second question here. Just you might as well knock this one as well. Can you do prospecting versus remarketing targeting? Is that something that can be separated?
Yeah, so LinkedIn doesn't work the same way as Google for like remarketing. And Melanie, I don't know, I don't want to put you on the spot here, but I haven't seen remarketing and cooking as much on this. Do you happen to know that?
No, it's not as profound as the way it is in Google. But if you don't upload a customer list, there's really no remarketing. Now there is a remarketing pixel that you can put on your website to track the people. So you can do like that level of remarketing, which is if they've visited your website in the past, you can target them again. And that could be one of the groups that's in your list of prospects. The other big thing about the prospect targeting that is beneficial is you can exclude people. So for example, you can exclude even by company name. So you can exclude your competitors, for example. So they're not seeing your ad and seeing your marketing. I think that's very helpful. The other big thing you can see is the size of your universe, which I think is very helpful. So as I believe the earlier question Bill asked about like, oh, I put in all these titles and I feel overwhelmed. It'll give you like an actual count of, if with these job titles in this geographic location, you're reaching, over 500,000 people. That does sound overwhelming. So then from there, you can make a better decision. Well, I know my universe is only about 5,000 buyers. So I do need to make some adjustments to my target. And so, yep.
Yeah, and you have to have a big enough universe as well. So if you have a really, really niche product, sometimes you have to think about expansion or look at a different channel. I think, Melanie, it's like at least 3,000 or 4,000 people within the LinkedIn universe, or else you can't do some of these to the point that you want to do it. In terms of targeting, you can do the blast out to everyone, but as far as the targeting, you need at least a few thousand.
Yeah, they prompt you to expand your audience.
Yeah, they're not in it for free. So they want to make sure they're going to get some ad click revenue from all of that.
Well, and in their defense, right, if you send an ad to 10 people.
Right. It doesn't make sense. So you have to think about that as well in terms of like we've had some clients with super, super niche audiences, and doing the direct sponsor content isn't the best route if you only have 50 people on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
All right. We're at like 40 minutes, so I want to make sure to cover a lot and then leave some time for some more Q&A. One thing to do is to consider LinkedIn pre-filled lead gen forms. These are somewhat new, been around I think for a year or two. They're really, really helpful if you don't have a lot of control over your website. And we know often websites are sitting over in IT, and marketing has problems getting access and updates. If you can control your web page and put up landing pages, that's great. If you can't, and even if you can, I'd really look at LinkedIn lead gen forms for a couple of different avenues. They're super fun and efficient because they come pre-filled. So if I were to say, click on this webinar, I'm interested to register, the form here will be filled out because LinkedIn, of course, knows who I am, right? The only thing you have to be careful is if you use a personal email over there, webinar invites and things are going to go over to that personal email, not your professional email. It's going to be whatever is associated with your LinkedIn account. So really nice. We've had a lot of conversion this way. It just makes it super simple, especially for people who are on mobile. So the forms are already filled out for them. They just click submit, and then they get the information or the download or registration information. And 9 is deciding on a bidding strategy. This is where it really helps to have experts because you can overspend somewhat easily and things. So if you're a brand new person to this, you may want to start with the first column here, which is automated bidding. It does get the maximum delivery. It's going to use your full budget. It's the start, right? And it's not going to be completely optimized in some cases. So as you get more comfortable with things, we really advocate looking at an enhanced CPC bid, which is manual. It costs a little bit more, but your lead conversion is going to be much higher quality, we found. And it's also for those very specific audiences, like a spine surgeon, is more effective at getting exactly those folks to view your content. This will be in the handout as well. You can Google, you can ask us questions about this, but the two we tend to use are either automated or for some of our clients that have particular niche audiences, this enhanced CPC. You can get into real trouble with the max cost bidding and manual bidding. Target cost will keep you, again, within a budget range, so it's fine to start with as well, but you might as well go automated at that point. So I'd look at number 1 or number 4 here in these columns. Melanie, did you want to add anything really quick to that?
Oh, I was just going to say for the enhanced bid, it's also important to use that for highly competitive areas. So I know, once again, in health technology space, everyone's going after that healthcare CIO, of which there are fewer and fewer healthcare CIOs. So to reach that, once again, it's niche, but it's also highly competitive. There's going to be, you know, lots of people going after that, which is where that being able to manually adjust and increase that bid is going to really help you.
Yeah, our client that's going after COVID services, we were one of the first out of the gate for them, but now everyone who has that offering is out there, and so it's a highly competitive bid, and so we're in that realm as well. And finally, test, measure, tweak. This is not a set it and forget it type campaign, and I would say Google is not either, but you have to constantly test copy, constantly test campaign types, bid types. Make sure you're getting metrics. If you have analytics, make sure you have Google Analytics set up to talk to LinkedIn and tag set correctly. If that's not something you don't know how to do, that's something we could answer in email or be happy to talk to folks about that. Even better if you have a dashboard like a Google Data Studio or somewhere you can actually see metrics and what's converting for you, and look at them at least on a monthly basis. When you're brand new to this, I'd say get in there at least weekly, and then as you're more experienced, be looking at click-through engagement and conversions, and not only conversions to a download or marketing qualified lead, but conversions to revenue. And that is something, if you join our newsletter or even just visit our blog, we're going to be adding information to that first table I showed in comparing Google versus LinkedIn with revenue conversions. Because at the end of the day, you know, the deal close is what counts. So it's really important to look at that. And so that is the end of our content. I'll be happy to take any other questions, Matt, that you have coming in, and Melanie will as well.
Excellent. This is probably a broad-reaching question, but a prospect is asking, how do you handle having a corporate or parent company LinkedIn page versus brand pages?
Yeah, interesting. Doesn't matter from the platform setup side, but you'll have to decide, you know, where you're pointing folks to. Melanie, do you have anything else to add to that?
Well, I would say my experience, especially if you have a different company, that's one thing. But I'm pretty sure within the past year to 18 months, LinkedIn has started discouraging having, you know, brand only pages.
Yeah.
Just because people weren't maintaining them as well. You know, they weren't getting all the benefits. You were having to have people follow you in multiple places. So my experience has been stick with stick with the one that you can dedicate the resources to. Now, if you have separate, actual business differences, like this one's named X company and this is XY, et cetera company, then keep those separate. But otherwise, I would not have a brand only page.
Yeah, we've had a few clients either acquire other companies or merged, and we really encouraged them to bring everything under one corporate umbrella and then just have messaging or pages around the different offerings.
Mm-hmm.
Great point. There's a question regarding opto levers. Do either one of you want to address those?
I'm sorry, what was that, Matt?
It says, what are the opto OPTO levers? And I may be butchering this, but
Optimum lever. Melanie, does that make sense to you?
Yeah, no.
no.
Not,
Okay.
Like an opt-in? Like someone's asking about
it says. I'm sorry. Double check this. It says OPTO, but the different ways. Different ways to optimize the campaign. I guess when you talk about tweaking and optimizing, I'm sorry.
Optimum levers.
Optimizing.
Yeah.
Okay.
They get that.
Thank you, Abe. I appreciate the Abe.
Yeah. So there's, many of the things that and I'm sorry, I just went through that, and then hold on, I'm going to get back into here. You can optimize the audience. You can optimize what you're saying here in terms of the copy. You can optimize the creative banner here. You can optimize the landing page. The sky is pretty much the limit. So what we find we tweak a lot is this like banner creative or the snapshot of the video. Believe it or not, like which frame of the video you show can make a difference. You do have to be careful if you are in the healthcare field not to show actually any anatomical real parts, just FYI, or any person in pain or anything like that. But you can show like this person who's working and doing COVID screening and things like that. So we find we're often tweaking the headlines, the creative, the landing page, and then the types of content, as well as the targeting. But if you do your targeting well up front, you're not probably going to have to do as much tweaking of that lever. Melanie?
Yeah, I was just going to say, related to the audience, back to, I'm big on exclusions. I mean, that's really the only thing from an audience perspective. Usually especially if you're getting a lot of leads, then you'll be able to say like, oh, these are more higher quality, these are, not as great. So there's that. And then once again, call to action, especially the lead gen forms, the pre-filled ones, those have different call to action buttons. So definitely seeing, getting back to the A/B testing, seeing which one of those are resulting in the largest, especially click-through rates. So, yep.
Excellent. We have just a couple more questions and probably just enough time to get through them. It's a follow-up question to the one we had previously regarding the parent company and the brand pages. Just for clarity, if my parent company is one name, but we go to market with 3 different brands, which from an end user standpoint is the company name rather, I should still put everything under the parent company? So it sounds like they go to.
This is like a bit of a gray area right now because LinkedIn used to allow all these different brand pages, and now they're discouraging it and want the one corporate profile that can be validated. So I would make sure that your corporate profile has messaging on it that talks about your different brands. Your Procter & Gamble, you're going to mention you have Tide there. Now, if you're as big as Tide, like, usually LinkedIn will allow you get away with something like that. Yeah. So it really depends on the size that you are and the size of your brand in where you're pointing to. It really comes into play, not so much in the direct sponsored content itself, but if you want to get a follow. Where do you want to get a follow to? Do you want them to follow your brand, or do you want them to follow your corporate profile? LinkedIn lately has been really encouraging people that they want everyone to go back to the corporate profile, and they've even been talking about having, like, a lot of companies will have a separate brand pages within the corporate profile.
Yeah.
Melanie, did I explain
Yeah.
that correctly?
Yes.
Okay.
Perfect. And Angela said thank you. So yes, I think you addressed her concerns. Thank you, Angela. We do have another question. Do either of you recommend the use of showcase pages in LinkedIn? How do you feel about that?
Mm.
Do you like them, Melanie?
I think that's kind of the same thing where it's like, you have to have there's two things going on. You have to have the resources, if you're a smallish marketing department, where do you put your resources? And then number two, the same question is, where are you driving people and why? Are you driving them to the showcase page to get them to engage, or do you drive them to your corporate page? I mean, it's still kind of like a bigger brand question of, what's most important to you.
Yeah,
in
what's your
terms
brand architecture structure? Are you a house of brands, a branded house? Like, do you want it just to go over to that one particular brand because it's a completely different audience? We did have that with one client who did a merger and it was completely different titles and personas. So they had a showcase page. But again, it doesn't matter so much from the ad perspective. It's just like, where are you driving people to? And do you want to drive them to follow those particular pages? Do you want to drive them to a conversion? Do you want to drive them to your website? So that's where those decisions come in on brand architecture and LinkedIn.
Mm-hmm.
Good stuff. We do have one more question. It's a little bit of a housekeeping issue. Someone wants to share the recording of this webinar with their international team. Are we open to that?
Fine with the Clarity Quest side if it's okay with Trade Track.
Yeah, we're good with that as well. Excellent. All righty. Well, Chris, I can't thank you enough for your time and your help. This has been fantastic. Melanie, thank you for your input as well. Really appreciate you guys stepping up.
Excellent. We've just given one last slide here with information. We have a really extensive marketing learning library. I've given a couple of links here that were included in the presentation with references. Melanie and I have our email addresses. You can hit us up on LinkedIn, on Twitter, on Facebook. We're on them all, and we'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Chris.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Perfect. Excellent. That's a great way to cap it.
Love you guys. We really appreciate all the tips and tools and the actionable items for our guests here. We're really excited to have you guys, and we so appreciate it. Good content, guys. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good evening or afternoon.
You too. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.